Welcome everybody back in, man. This thing should be live right now. I think we're good to go. Yes, I think we're good to go. And today, we have an episode that felt was necessary on a Monday. Just a kind of a wrap up episode, just a recap of the Lions draft before we really get into all of the undrafted free agency additions. We'll hopefully get breakdowns of each of those players individually. We may do like kind of a roundup of every UDFA signing that may come out on like a Wednesday. So we may do something like that just to kind of give a quick overview of everybody that the Lions have brought in so far. And then eventually, hopefully, a breakdown. That way I kind of have that in the back pocket if it doesn't happen for every player. But that's kind of where we're at right now. And today I thought, hey, it's Monday after the draft. It's the best time to just do a straightforward recap what the Lions did in the draft. How do we feel about it a couple of days later if things has kind of settled in a little bit? Before we, of course, do full breakdowns of each of these players as well, because we're gonna have that too. We're gonna have that too, and as we always do. But those things take a little bit. They take a little bit to kind of fall in place. And before we get to just to recap this, and I'm looking at the names. Um, I think the names in the draft felt pretty right in terms of where a lot of guys ended up going. That's kind of was my big takeaway this morning when looking through it. Just looking at like where certain guys went. Kevin Winston going in the third round, kind of the middle of the third round, coming off the injury, super talented. I was like, okay, that's an understandable spot. You had Wyatt Millum who kind of flew in there. I think he was kind of getting pushed up the radar for a lot of people because of where the guard class was, which I think also pushed up a guy like Tate Ratledge. And I think when we heard from Brad Holmes about kind of the decision making behind doing that, it was because of, hey, there's not a lot of guys out there. So if you want to get him, you better go get him, which was the immediate thought for me personally, just outside of the player alone, because obviously my grade early wasn't on the highest side, but a lot of the guys that I had above him were tackle that would transition to guard. That was a lot of projection based thinking, and I don't know that all of those guys will actually do that. One guy that I really liked, of course, was our guy from William and Mary, Charles Grant, but that was a steep projection to say go to guard. I mean, a lot of teams are probably going to look at him as a tackle, but like you get a guy like that, and you kind of see where some of these other players have went. It would make sense, that teams were kind of like, man, let's get in and get out of here with our guards. We saw that in the first round. Tyler Booker going to Dallas, I think, started everything right there, right? I mean, Tyler Booker jumping off the board to Dallas got everything rolling. That was supposed to be a receiver spot, and no, it wasn't. It was like, hey, we're going to get the offensive lineman, which in hindsight, I actually really like it for Dallas. I really do. I mean, I'm a big Tyler Booker guy, so I think it made a lot of sense. And I really like the Donovan Jackson pick to Minnesota. It's just, I thought that he would be sitting there for us, and he wasn't. But I guess, when you look at the draft, I think a lot of teams did a nice job seemingly of kind of playing the board, saying, okay, here's where it's not great this year. Let's jump on it. And I think every team had a pretty solid awareness of that. Like we saw in the fourth round, there was like a run of like 3 straight edge rushers. We kind of felt the draft weave through what the strengths were. Now we'll see which ones hit, but what it ultimately felt like as a whole, the strengths were of the draft. So ultimately, that was kind of like my early takeaway of just how the entire thing shook out, with a lot of these guys. I don't think there was a ton of like craziness in terms of maybe outside of Braden Swinson. I thought Swinson would go relatively early. I just thought he had that kind of skill set to go early. We'll see how that plays out. I thought he would. And even guys like Jordan Birch got in round 3, and I thought Jordan Birch had a lot of questions around him, but I really liked him, and I think that's a really good spot for him. But today, we're going to kind of just, walk through these picks. Shout out to everybody in the chat, by the way. I just saw that, man. Shout out to all y'all in here. My man, chat, my man Mike's in the building. Hey, shout out to all y'all here, man. I appreciate you being here. It's good to see you. And yeah, that's all we're going to do, man. We're just going to recap, and I'm going to throw the picks on the screen, kind of talk through them a little bit. Maybe if any of my takes have changed. Again, this is not full breakdown on each player, but just kind of the early thoughts on these guys before we get there with those guys. Maybe I've dabbled in a little bit of their film even more to kind of like refresh my thinking, right? Because you have the numbers, I have my early grades on these guys, but when you kind of go back through, maybe some things change, right? It's kind of fresh in your mind. You're like, okay, I remember that now. That makes sense. So just kind of doing all that today a little bit, kind of getting reset on some of these guys. But I thought the most interesting thing was, and I guess we might as well bounce around here a little bit because I'm assuming a lot of the conversation is still going to be about the trade we ended up making for Isaac Tesla. But I thought the most interesting thing is the conversation around when we took him versus who was actually on the board at the receiver position. So like today, I saw Mel Kiper Jr.'s kind of reaction. Mel Kiper's reaction to what the Lions did in this year's draft. And a lot of the thing that I had read was on Isaac Tesla, the aggressiveness that they made to go get the guy. Obviously, he didn't have him as high, and that's understandable, right? If you don't have him as high and the team drafts him high, then yeah, you're going to have a lower grade. So that makes a ton of sense. But his take on how many players he actually had like ranked above Isaac Tesla is what made it super interesting to me when I started to look at actually who went after Isaac Tesla. So I wanted to read through some of the names that went after Isaac Tesla that Mel Kiper stated could have been there essentially at 102, right? 12 players, he said, who were still available, and 9 of them would have been there at 102. So, like, immediately after, you had Pat Bryant out of Illinois. And I think those are understandable. Those are kind of in a similar spot. That I don't think it's a big shock to me. Now, for me, in terms of just a true upside perspective, I could see why you would lean Isaac Tesla. The production's obviously not there, but we saw a breakout season toward the end for Pat Bryant. You get pretty excited about what his hands became by the end of it, how efficient he is as a mover. But I could see kind of the nod to Tesla in terms of upside. Bryant, you could feel maybe more comfortable that immediately it's going to be better on the outside because of his release package or just more consistency there. So you understand where that kind of balance could come into play. So that's an understandable one. Then you go Jalen Noel. And again, that's one where I think a lot of people had a love for Jalen Noel. It was just kind of, again, trying to figure out what the upside is. Like, Jalen Noel is obviously a size thing. And I never thought Jalen Noel was dominant when I watched him. I didn't ever feel like he's taken over games. I always felt like the flashes were amazing, and it just didn't feel like he would dominate games. And you felt the limitations. Like, they weren't just like, oh, well, he's got short arms and that's the talking point. Like, it was legit. Oh, man, that is real. Like, you can see that as a real aspect. So that really comes down to fit there as well. So, you got a guy like Jalen Noel who flies in after. Again, those weren't too far off, super far off. Then you get to Savion Williams, and that's where things start to get interesting because now you're looking at a guy who, from a route running perspective, there's not much there that I liked. But you like when you get the ball in his hands, and you like the physicality, you like the build. And I think about a Savion Williams versus Isaac Tesla, and like, I didn't have Savion in my top 15. Like, that immediately gets me to a spot, and that fits Green Bay well because they'll run him, they'll hand it off to those guys. But immediately I get to that kind of back and forth specifically, and I'm starting to think like, okay, I could definitely understand the Lions' perspective of leaning Tesla here. I would have probably leaned Tesla if I would have put these two side by side, just from a route running perspective as alone. I mean, you definitely get more probably upside of what he can do after the catch. But when I look at receivers, while it is a critical factor, hands and separation come first. And to me, that would give the nod to Isaac Tesla. So ultimately, I thought very quickly, like, the conversation became interesting. We saw how muddied up that receiver room was because, a guy like Jalen Royals, who I liked a lot, went a little bit later. Like, that was a very mixed, I would say, room, right? Then you get to Ty Felton. I mean, Ty Felton went at the end of round 3 to just kind of cap it all off. And I thought, Ty Felton, like, showed a lot of flash and a lot of potential, but it wasn't, again, that it was consistent when you watch him. So to separate an Isaac Tesla versus Ty Felton, I don't think feels that aggressive because, yeah, you didn't get a super ultra, productive receiver in Isaac Tesla. But, obviously he started at Hillsdale, right? Was a player that was playing quarterback in high school. So he had to start with special teams to kind of get himself on the field. And then ultimately it turned into him playing receiver. And then by the time it was all said and done, we'll throw it up on here. Like, he had a relatively productive season last year. It wasn't crazy. It was 500 yards. But I do feel, and, just kind of some updated opinions on Isaac Tesla. And again, full breakdown's coming later. That's not here yet. He's 23 years old. You had that with a lot of picks. So I don't think that's a huge issue for me either. With this draft pick, 6'4", 215, the guy runs like crazy. So we know all the testing is there. But as Brad Holmes stated, and I love that he did this, he's like, look, height, weight, speed's easy, right? Can the guy actually play in terms of, when you're scouting players, it's not about like, oh, is he big, fast? And like, yeah, we get that, right? That's pretty fast to pick up on. But I think when you do watch Isaac Tesla, the little things that he did note in terms of the toughness that he plays with is incredibly noticeable, right? The guy had technically 0 drops this past season on 36 targets. That said, sometimes I think PFF could be a little bit hit and miss because those are always subjective. The point is the toughness very noticeable, right? The Lions clearly have that with St. Brown. They found that. You find that there with Tesla pretty quickly, the toughness in traffic. There was a catch I was watching today. I was watching him against Ole Miss today, where and I think I had already seen the game, right? It's kind of just a refresh on that because you get so many players right before the draft, they are cramming and you kind of forget like certain aspects, and you see it again, you're like, oh, that was cool. I remember why I like that. And there's like a great catch that he makes. He runs like a little out route and he just gets sandwiched by 2 guys. But the speed at which he gets to catch the tuck process started, and the strength within his hands and how much that really pops shows immediately in a play like that. And you see that toughness. And then, as Brad Holmes pointed out, his first, taste of Isaac Tesla was the Senior Bowl and his blocking. But that also shows up on film as well, the willingness there. And it doesn't surprise you when you consider the background, because the background of the player is like, hey, I got my start in special teams. I wasn't a receiver. I'm going to Hillsdale. I'm in Division II. The start is special teams. So you're going to have an edge to you to make it happen. And remember, one thing the Lions loved about JMO too was like, yeah, he can play special teams. It's like, he probably won't do it because we don't want to get him hurt, but he can play special teams. And if you watch day 2's presser reaction, like, it's one thing to say it about your round 7 picks. Like, yeah, that's going to keep you on the team. But it's another thing to say it about your round 3 pick is like, the special teams kind of why we like him. And I don't think it's even just as much about like, hey, he's actually going to be utilized in special teams. He actually may. but it's more so just kind of about what that showcases of the player, right? It's the toughness that it showcases of the player, the willingness to kind of do the boring, or not even the boring, but just the dirty things, just the rest of your teammates to excel, right? And I think that that's where you kind of get that lean. The Lions would rather lean there than even maybe just total production, because they're like, oh, that guy, because clearly he shows it as a player. Like there's not a lot of things to not really like about his game as a player. Like there's little knocks, things that I like to see improve, but in terms of just feel as a route runner, that's super noticeable, right? And it hit me even more so watching it today. Just kind of the lateral movement, the subtleness to maintain a lot of route discipline when you watch Isaac TeSlaa. There's a ton of route discipline to his game. The level 3 impact that opens up. He works really well through rub routes because he's got a little bit of bend in the upper body, so he can kind of just slip past guys. But you'll see it in kind of the way that he opens things up. It all comes back to discipline. The way that he sinks, he runs those kind of like wheel comeback routes, and the way that he can settle himself down with some quickness. He really can snap off his routes, but it all starts back to the way that he paces himself. He does the same thing off the ball for slants. He paces it to allow himself to get out of breaks. So you'll get a lot of those things that you like in terms of as a route runner. There's a lot of things to grab onto there. And then in terms of as a separator, again, there's a lot of things to grab onto too, because of the upside, because of the agility that he showcased, and so the way that he can become explosive because of the way that he controls his movement, and because of the suddenness that he'll play with. And I always like guys that can work in the slot from this perspective. When guys work in the slot, usually there's some wiggle to him, right? That's immediate. I think that's what I saw when we drafted him, is the wiggle for a guy at his size, what stands out. Guys that can work in the slot usually have some looseness to their game. It's one thing to project a guy to the slot. It's another thing to see it, especially at his size. You expect that all the small receivers, they're twitchy, they're shifty. You expect them to be tough to deal with, give them more space to work with. You expect all those things. But when you put a big guy there, and even some of the smaller guys don't excel there, when you put a big player there, there's got to be a lot of efficiency, because they're going to quickly get their hands on you. Guys can quickly make you deal with contact, right? They can put you in spots where you can get out leveraged really early. And then it's like, well, can you pry it open? If you're supposed to run an in breaker and it's not an option route, can you get to the inside if he's settled on the inside? So very quickly you figure out if a guy has that kind of wiggle. And I think where you see it with TeSlaa is the efficiency of the way that he moves to be able to pry those opportunities out, right? He's probably not going to be elite after the catch, but you'll get some of the savviness too, right? He's got a little bit of the who was the guy that I noted before the draft that had some of that savviness? I'm trying to think of who it was. I think it was Lovett, actually, after the draft that came to mind. Lovett had some of this too, where there was just some nuance. It was like, all right, there's a creative way to make it happen. Like when he would find, when you watch one of those comeback routes, right? And some of these vets do. Quintez Cephas always had this in his game too, where he would look back to find the quarterback and then he'd snap it off the other way. You had some of the savviness like that as well. And then the big play kind of feel. You want to talk about feel? It shows up on the big plays. Someone brought up A&M, right? That's like the first play of the game. The dude had a touchdown, right? It's because of the feel of just like, all right, let me just go get open. But I always notice with TeSlaa, and what's super noticeable for me fast, is not just the toughness. It's not just that he's going to block people. It's the fact that feels very unselfish when you watch him, right? There seems to be a real urgency to be like, okay, if I need to do this for that guy, I'll do it. And here's how I'm going to sell it. And because you get that consistent sell, he doesn't have to be consistently productive, because the other guys can eat off of his ability to open up routes. Like if he's trying to just run off a clear out route, you're going to feel like that route feels legit. Even if the ball, it's like you're watching, you're like, he's not going to get the football like that. It feels legit. You as just a consumer, it feels like, oh, there's something happening here. Is he trying to get open? And then when you look back, you're like, yeah, there's really no design for him to get the football here. So for me, just a quick little nugget on Isaac TeSlaa. I just thought it was interesting to see the response there for just a receiver in general. Not even the trade up. The trade up, yeah, that's an argument, right? You give up 2/3, you get a guy that you love. The pushback is if he works, he works. Like I don't really care. But for me, and hopefully those picks are late. Obviously, the comp pick will be super late, as Brad Holmes touched on. They felt comfy with it. But for me, it's just like when you put the names around him, like to get started in the 4th round, right out of Florida, you go with a receiver that wasn't given that much buzz, kind of getting into things. You go to Arian Smith from the Jets in the 4th round. Like the names that you're getting to when you think about some of the receivers that were legitimately taken after, Give me 1 second. Let me grab this bag. My bad. I had a bag over there that I wanted to grab. But yeah, I mean, the names that legitimately went after your receiver here, to me, I just don't see how there's like a huge conversation. Like even if you have a guy ranked above the others, there's just not like a obvious like, oh, of course that guy's above that guy. You just don't feel that when you look at some of these names. Like Jalen Lane, think about this for a second. So the Lions picked at 102, right? So if you go to 102, it's really the beginning of the 4th round. And Kiper says he has 9 guys that would have been available at 102. And I like Mel Kiper. I'm not, obviously we can have different disagreements. I like his stuff. And look, you stick to what you say. But I think even if that's the case, the gap can't be that massive to me. Like for example, so I'm looking at round 4 and I'm kind of going through the names, like who could he have beyond him? When you get to like Jalen Lane, I'm a Jalen Lane guy. Like I've talked about Jalen Lane a lot over here. I like Jalen Lane. I look at the special teams upside and I get excited, but I see the name and I'm just kind of like, if that's one of the guys that he's including in that list, I'm just a little confused a little bit because Lane didn't have much of a route tree at all. Right? This guy just ran over routes over and over. Like I'm watching him trying to figure out like, okay, how do you get to versatility here? Like if he gets to like an RPO style, it works, and he got to Washington, that works. You can do things after the catch, but it's kind of hard to make a strong case that that guy is clearly better than that guy. Like I would have never got there. I could have said I liked him better. I just would have never got there. So overall, like again, it's not like a oh you can't disagree with the pick. No, you should. That's what makes it fun. I'm cool with people disagreeing with it. I think you should have opinions on these things. That's fine. I just feel like a receiver, it was pretty a muddy group right there. So it just, it's just an interesting point that I thought I'd bring up. All right. That said, let's continue with just kind of a recap. Like I said, we're going to do with a lot of these guys. And the next player that I want to talk about is going to be Tate Ratledge. So Ratledge was a guy that, he was in my top 10 offensive linemen. I think he was like 7 when I threw him in there. And like I said, the problem with it was I had guys up there that weren't guards. They were tackle to guard. Wyatt Millam, who went round 3, Charles Grant, who went round 3. Like these were guys that, I think Wyatt Millam's going to go to guard. I'm not sure Charles Grant actually does. I don't really feel that comfortable he does. And then once you got up there, it was like, okay, but your top 3 were kind of set in stone. All of those guys were first round picks, right? I mean, you had Donovan Jackson, you had he's slipping my mind, the center. I can't think of his name. He went dang, I should have remembered his name. I forgot dude's name. It's gonna come to me. It's gonna come to me. And then he had Tyler Booker, but even I thought Gray Zabel, I felt when watching like this guy's gonna be a center. Like I didn't feel like it was guard, but initially I was like, he's definitely not gonna play a tackle. So you just had a lot of that when you got to that grouping. When you looked at the interior offensive line, that's why I was like, hey, this is not a great interior offensive line group. I mean, my top 3 were very clear cut. They were all first round. Wyatt Millam and Charles Grant. Grant's probably going to stay at tackle. That'd be my guess. And that's why I thought, team would draft him for tackle. Wyatt Millam is a left tackle to guard potentially. I think he will go to guard. Marcus Bowe and Tate Ratledge, the difference between those two is while I had Bowe higher, the difference is style, right? Styles make fights, especially with offensive linemen, man. You got to be comfy with the style of lineman that you get. And that's where it always comes down to. I don't know if did I ever mock Bowe to the Lions? I don't know that I did. And the big problem there is there's got to be a style that makes sense. So while I can like the player better, it's like you got to put him in the right spot because otherwise you're going to have a weird fit. And when you looked at Bowe, it was like, I don't know about the power here. When you watch a guy like Ratledge, that's like the opposite of how you feel. You're like, all right, this guy's going to move guys around. Like immediately you're like, yeah, he's going to push people around, right? He's going to push people where they don't want to go. And it's immediate. It's sudden. It's forceful. It's explosive when he gets his hands on guys. You immediately feel the knockback. You're like, all right, that's just different. It's a different part of his game. Now, is he the athlete of Bowe? Yeah, probably not, right? Bowe was playing tackle. Now, in that case, Ratledge also played tackle going back to high school before he went to the guard position. Ratledge also has the thing against him, which is, I don't even know if I want to say it's against him. I guess Brad used it as a positive. Like the guy's been hurt a lot. All right, 2021 injury, 2023 injuries, 2024 injuries. I mean, to the point where the guy's like in and out of series. It's kind of like Torrey Horton was. I mean, I watched him against Clemson again today to kind of refresh. Like the dude was in and out of that game series after series. Like that's something that I think they twisted into a positive. He's dealing with all these lower body injuries and he's still out there playing. And then, but it is like a knock in a sense of like, yeah, the guy's not consistently on the field. But I guess you do like the toughness. If there is a position that you look for toughness, it's definitely the offensive line position. So without a doubt, he's going to have that. And what always caught my attention when listening to Brad Holmes after speaking on these draft picks was specifically how he talked about how Ratledge's versatility pushed him up the board. When I heard that, like, yeah, you could think tackle maybe, right? They're going to cross train guys because he had played tackle. I'm like, all right, I could hear it. But it's more so not even that. To me, it's more so with Tate Ratledge, it's not position flexibility, it's flexibility at his position is what I think about, right? That was the thing that caught my eye, and I think that was our initial reaction if you watch that back, was like, I do think that there is versatility within what he does as a run blocker. Like, I don't think you have to put him in one scheme. Like, he jars guys out of plays on inside zones, right? You put him on duos, he's going to push guys back. Now, does he play a little tall sometimes, right? He's kind of getting caught, like just catching on top of people like this, and there's not a great leverage or drive into those, but he can still move guys. You'll see some bend. He'll kind of lean around. Like if you watch him as a puller, there's some bend, there's some flexion. He can kind of drop his weight, get sideways, kind of adapt to oncoming defensive players. So when I kept hearing him bring up flexibility that pushed him up during the process. What I thought of wasn't, hey, flexibility position. It's the flexibility at your position. It's your ability to do different things as a guard, which, as we know, the Lions have always valued very heavily, is that ability. And he has that mauling feel to his game. So, the Lions are going to feel good about this, very firm early. You're just getting a power piece, right? You're getting a guy that could settle in and bam, he could deal with contact initially. And look, he's going to, I assume, play in different spots, right? They're going to cross train guy. He said that, with everybody, they're going to try him out different spots. But when I think about it, I think of that because that's where the difference comes in with him and a Marcus Bowe, where you're like, there's certain things I don't know if I'd want him to do. There's just certain things, like he may do what he does at a really high level, and that makes it valuable to that team. But for us, we do everything. There isn't like schemes that we don't tap in at some point during the season. We may lean zone over everything, and he might be a better zone blocker than anything from what I've seen, especially if we're working inside. But we ask him to do everything. There's not really, and if you ask him to seal block, he's good at that. Why? Because he has the power. He's got the core strength. You'll see him just kind of roll over dudes, and eventually he's like, all right, position, I'm kind of settled in here. Now, he may not latch it that well, but you can see he's like, all right, he can get to where he needs to be. And I think when I kept hearing Brad, that's what I thought of, at least there. Now, that being said, so we know about those two picks. And again, we're just going to give a little bit of a take on a couple of these guys. So Tyleik Williams, of course, I actually just dropped a video on Tyleik Williams just to kind of expand a little bit more on the Lions draft approach. Of course, this is the first pick, gets all the attention as it should. But the Tyleik Williams pick is such a weird one for me because I think what Tyleik did, not Tyleik, he didn't do this, but I think what happened to a lot of fans, and this is why I'm very glad, because here's how I learned and it worked out this year, right? In the past, there were certain guys or certain expectations that I just didn't have that would make sense at the spot because all of a sudden, say you do these mock draft simulators and the guy's never there, or you do mock draft simulators and a guy's always there, but he's never like the top option. You're like, I just kind of overlook that guy and you kind of forget about him. And then you never look into him. And then they draft him, and you're like, well, wait a minute, what the heck? It happened with Jack Campbell to me. It happened with Ife Melifonwu. And after the Jack Campbell pick, I had told myself, like, yo, I'm not going to overlook these things, especially at the top. And certain guys you just don't get to, right? There's a lot of players, and that's why going forward, we're going to be doing draft content year long. But you don't want to overlook the top guys just because they don't hit the simulator. And I think that's what Tyleik Williams kind of fell into, is he was a guy that just wasn't the standout at the spot. It was like, well, maybe Grant will be there at some point. The dude went 13, right? So it was never that. He was never the name that had come up. But ultimately, I still had done my work on him because, maybe, I don't know when, but maybe. And they end up drafting that guy. And like I said, when I ended up looking back, it's like, well, I have the exact same grade I have on Tyleik as I have Jahad Campbell. So, I mean, just at least from my perspective, from a value spot, it does make a lot of sense to me that feels like a pretty accurate position for the piece. And I think a lot of the response that you got to see all over the place was kind of like, oh, yeah, this is a guy that, okay, maybe he was too early, right? Maybe this wasn't where he should have went, that kind of thing. But they have said that before. It's not the first time we heard it. Jahmyr Gibbs, yeah, we've heard that a lot before. I just think, and the full video breakdown will do it better justice here, as I already posted. You can definitely go check that out. But the Tyleik Williams fit for the Lions is really helpful. And it's just one of those things where, again, you get caught up in the noise of like, well, they need this. Like, if you look at a lot of these responses to the Lions draft, a lot of it was the same thing. Like Mel Kiper, again, going back to the lone edge rusher selected was Ahmed, right? He brings it up immediately. That's what the conversation is. But I think even when I forget how I felt about things, right? You forget what you really believed in. And what I believed in was interior defensive line. I believed in we had to get better against the run. And I should be the one that loves the Tyleik Williams pick the most, more than anybody. I should be promoting this because it's like, yo, that makes us better against the run. And I think when you start to put the pieces of the puzzle and you think, well, what values lines? Well, it's flexibility, right? What works for the defense line coach is flexibility. What makes Levi valuable? He can play everywhere. That piece that can do the same thing is valuable for the Lions. It's super valuable. It's valuable to everybody else, and it's valuable to them right now for injuries, valuable for the future. It helps everybody. It makes everybody better to add this piece to this defense. And then, of course, when you start to look at Tyleik Williams and where you had their grades on everything, and I start to look back, and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense why they went with that guy, right? I brought up the example of Derek Harmon. I thought he's below average in just football intelligence. Lions going to draft that guy in the first round? Probably not. But when you look back, you're like, well, Tyleik, I had a great grade on his feel for the game, right? His football intelligence. I had a great grade there. I was strong on his discipline, right? The motor, like those are the kind of things that you just should expect the Lions are going to go after those pieces. And then, of course, as we touched on, the agility to kind of pull it all together is never a problem for a Lions defensive lineman. That seems to be kind of a trait that constantly pops up. Now, the other picks, Miles Frazier ended up being a round 5 pick. I actually thought he was a round 6 pick when I initially looked at it. I guess it's just because of how far he got picked back in the 5th round that I thought he was a 6th round pick because we ended up moving up like 10 spots to go get him. It was at 6th round initially. This will actually have a better, I think, ring to it to not like make it sound crazy because you put a 6th round pick next to Miles Frazier. It just doesn't feel right. I'm gonna be honest, just doesn't feel right. You put the 5th round pick next to him. All of a sudden, it makes some sense. It feels more accurate because I think Miles Frazier, I still believe, was probably the best value the Lions walked away with outside of Isaac Tesla. Isaac Tesla is going to have an argument. You're going to see in the breakdown eventually. But Miles Frazier, to me, from initial reaction, to me, is clearly the most valuable draft pick the Lions made because he is, to me, the best player at that spot for where he was drafted. Like he stood out. He has starting potential in my eyes. Miles Frazier was like, wow, you ended up landing that guy at that spot. That to me reminded me of Kevin Zeitler when I watched him from a stylistic perspective. And that pick to me makes more sense than really any pick that was made. Well, just as much as any pick that was made because of the flexibility that he adds, because of the pass protection reliance that you're going to have on the piece, because of the potential flexibility to play both guard positions. Like Miles Frazier is the most valuable draft pick that I think the Lions made. And this is the kind of pick where you're like, hey, if you really can set yourself to like, oh, we don't have to force this pick because we just went guard. So, or we just went receiver, guard, defense, tackle. It's got to be a different position because you were open, like, we don't care about that. Just take the guy. It allowed you to get a guy like this. Like this one feels like you're going to walk away. And I say early thoughts. Like we did I think it was like a day or two after we took Brian Branch in that draft. And I think I said there, like, I wouldn't be surprised if we felt, looking back a few years from now and said, hey, Brian Branch is the best player the Lions drafted. Like that wouldn't be that wouldn't be shocking if we thought that. Now, ultimately, that draft was so darn good that's like, okay, he might be, but I mean, we drafted a lot of good guys. I think that it's not crazy to say, and I'll lay that statement out like, hey, Miles Frazier is going to feel like the best value the Lions had in this draft. Again, Tesla could have that conversation just because he could be that good. The only thing that's going to come back is, well, you did give up some draft picks, but he could be that good, right? He has some capabilities to be really good. But it's Miles Frazier's value right now that's instant. It's like, yeah, you got that dude where in the draft? Like you're going to remember him like a 6th round pick. Forget that they moved up 10 spots to grab him because he has that kind of value. It's crazy to feel like this worked out. And I think that's going to be my early statement of claim on Miles Frazier is that he's going to end up being the most valuable pick the Lions made. I really do feel like that early. That's going to be the early senses, like in the early returns, like, wow, Miles Frazier is really darn good. How do we get him that far in the draft? That's my guess with Frazier. I think he's that good. I thought he was a top 10 interior offensive lineman. Again, once you start to take out the tackles of that mix, that guys that could be tackles, you start to get to a spot where like, dude, this is like really darn good. like how do we land this guy at this spot? I don't know, but you did. With all these guards going off the board, you let this guy fall to us. I don't know how it happened. And then we wrap it up with a guy's name that I can't say, Dan Jackson and Dominic Lovett, which we actually just did the video on these kind of guys. So I won't spend too much time here. That's why I want to give more focus to the other ones. But Ahmed from Boise State, like, it's more about the feel of the fit, which has constantly kind of gotten in the back of my mind, which is, we talked about DPR. We talked about a guy that you just go rush the passer and that kind of thing. But his fit, not only now, but also long-term, does make sense. One, it sticks to kind of the profile of what the Lions go after. They like guys that are going to be strong, upper body presence, and have agility that kind of taps in. It kind of makes you a unicorn in a sense. They always like those guys. But I think then once you start to put it into what the Lions typically look for at their edge position and what they already have, the value of having a guy that can actually add that element back to the team is something they didn't have last year. When all these injuries came up, when you have depth coming in, they didn't have pocket collapsers on the outside. They didn't have guys that would play multiple gaps. They didn't have that. They have a guy that could do their job, but they didn't have that piece. And the upside of that piece is exactly what makes sense of like, oh, yeah, he's going to collapse some things, right? He's going to push guys backwards a little bit. He has that in his game. So I think the more that I just look at the fit, it's just like, yeah, that's a Lions type of player for sure. And again, that was one that, as you know, I was pretty hyped up because he was a couple spots above the guys that have already went. So for Mel Kiper, if I'm Mel Kiper in this sense, I'd be like, hey, you got this guy about 3 or 4 guys above like who had already went. So I'd feel like this is great value. And then, of course, Dan Jackson and Lovett, like these, yeah, special teams is going to matter. Special teams going to matter, but they also have roles. Like there's also a path to like, okay, not only does special teams impact matter here, and it feels like that's going to be how they make the squad, but if they do end up making the squad, the potential for them is very much so in sight. Like, what is Dan Jackson's future? Dude, we need some safety depth. Like, it's pretty clear how you can make this team and be valuable to us, right? We have one backup safety that we trust right now in Avonte Maddox. We have a couple young guys, UDFAs, that we're kind of just waiting and seeing. And Avonte Maddox isn't even a full-time safety. I think he's going to play full-time safety for us, but he's not. So it's like, yeah, we need that. So not only can special teams you help us, but we also do need that. There's a really clear path for like, dude, if you earn this, you can stick around for 4 years. And that doesn't happen a lot with seventh round picks, but you definitely can. And you flip it around to the other side and you look at it from a perspective of Dominic Lovett, it's very clear as well. It's like, hey, Khalif Raymond took a pay cut this year. Your future is very clear. Like you can run like Khalif Raymond. You have special teams ability potentially like Khalif. You can do work after the catch. You're pretty decisive as a runner once the ball gets in your hands with your vision. It's a very clear path to like, yeah, special teams can help you early, right? It could help you out position a Ronnie Bell and an Antoine Green at the back end of the roster. But what you can do is you have a spot where if you can do that, you can be the replacement for Khalif Raymond. You can fill in as receiver 4, as we'll put it here. Like there's a really clear path to what your future is. And I just think when you look at the Lions draft as a whole, there's a lot of clarity, right? The further we get away from this, the more clarity there will be because they'll kind of construct the roster around it. But there's a lot of clarity to me in terms of where these guys are going to line. I don't think there's a lot of confusion at how this is going to make sense. I actually think it makes a ton of sense when if you're just looking at it from a needs perspective. We just throw away the fact of the player you're drafting. If you just start looking at it from a needs perspective, all of the players that they drafted, they fill a need, right? All of these guys, they fill needs here for us, right? They fill some need somewhere. The only one would be Miles Frazier. We're like, well, you have a lot of interior offensive linemen now, but even then, they said they want to get younger at guard. They definitely took a step to getting younger at guard here and getting younger on the offensive line just in general. But Miles Frazier, to me, the value is so good that it's like, yeah, forget it, dude. We're going to need him at some point, right? Injuries happen. You're going to need him at some point, and then it allows Graham Glasgow to settle in back at backup center. Like it works, right? It's going to work, right? Offense line, defense line, depth. No one's ever going to complain about that. So for me, I think the draft has brought more clarity. The days we get away from it, the more clarity you have on what the Lions ultimately did here, and the more excitement that I have, I think, about this entire draft class. Like Tyleik feels like he's going to fill a role that's so needed right away that it's just going to make even more sense. And we're going to look at this season and be like, thank goodness we drafted that guy, because what would we do if we didn't have him? And it feels like he's going to be a guy that's very quickly going to kind of fall into a conversation of we're going to criticize him. He's going to have his ups and downs, because I think he will early on. We'll see how I feel once I do the full breakdown, but I think he's going to. But ultimately, forget that for a second. He's going to be overlooked in how actually important he really is as a rookie, how much we're actually going to lean on him as a rookie, right? It felt like we were out of that era, but we're going to lean on him a lot. And I think we're going to notice that very quickly with Tyleik Williams. Everybody else, we'll see in terms of how fast we have to lean on them, but they all do feel like Lions at the end of it all. And Isaac Tesla will be the one that, again, he has a clear role. There's a clear path for him here. Right, there's a clear path for him. Yeah, he can help us with special teams, but you can replace Tim Patrick. You could become receiver 3. You replace all the kind of the Josh Reynolds was here for a minute. DJ Shark was here for a minute. You just kind of had a rotation at that role. It's very clear that Isaac Tesla could replace that. And as I kind of just slid in there at the last in the last video I did, if Isaac Tesla becomes what the Lions hope he can become, and that doesn't have to be year 1, it can be year 2 or later. Let's say year 2 he becomes what the Lions hope he can be, and he starts to tap into that, because it's probably going to take a year. You may have the best trio of receivers that you've ever had in this Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell era. Like last season, you took a massive jump as a whole. You became a great receiving core. You went from good to, hey, this is maybe the best in football. They are amazing against man coverage. And then Tim Patrick was that little extra element that gave you something different. The flip side is, yo, if Tesla hits, like I know he can beat zone right now. So he'll add me that with Tim Patrick. But if he becomes what you think he can become, this is your best receiver trio you've ever had, and it's not even close in this era. And then you start to talk about as a whole, like I know it's getting, it feels like it's early, but man, it could be there, right? It could be a super strong receiving core of 3. Like this could be nasty as a trio here, and they all can bring something different to the table. Jamo's going to run away from people. Jamo's a hard man-to-man threat. Jamo brings safety help. Tesla beats him zone coverage, but has man-to-man capabilities, can maybe add a little bit after the catch, but he's the toughness guy. And then St. Brown just beats everybody everywhere all at once, right? Like that's what he is. So yeah, that's kind of what I just want to do today. Just kind of put a bow on this draft class, man. The more we walk away, the more I'm excited about how this is going to work. And I think with that, next up will be the breakdowns. We'll start to get into the conversation. I do like looking back that the Lions didn't jump on a tight end, I think, at the end. I think based on how it fell for UDFA's, the Lions adding Caden out of Ole Miss, I kind of do like the Lions didn't throw a pick in there just to throw a pick in there, because they ended up getting a guy which, is kind of in that same conversation with all those guys who they ended up signing. But it's also one of those things where, you did add Kenny Yeboah to the mix. You don't dislike where you're at with tight end. So I just like that if you were going to do it, you were going to have to do it kind of early just to walk away with a guy that you were like, yeah, he's got that real upside there. But instead of just taking a random swing at the end, they kind of just let it happen. And I do think that was the right approach. Like it's one thing to land Colston Loveland at 28. It's another thing to be like, yeah, let's just kind of not force that in round 7 just to say that we drafted a tight end, right? That kind of thing. Then linebacker kind of falls into the similar category as well. Like you could have took a swing on a random linebacker at the end, but would he have made the team? I don't know. I don't even know if he would have made the team at that point. Like the linebackers that we actually had available at round 7, I don't know if any of these dudes are making the team. Like I'm not feeling super confident. That's why the 7th-round picks that we made are nice because they have an actual role. You can point to like, oh, that could be a spot down the road. You look at linebacker and you're like, okay, who in the world is getting selected back here? Like we didn't even have that many linebackers go. Like if you look at some of these dudes, man, like we didn't have like any linebackers go, but there's how many of these dudes are starting? I don't know. You had Lindenberg that went before you. Like I don't know, dude. Like I don't know. You're just picking a guy to pick a guy. Like I think they hit on their top 5 needs without a doubt. That's the thing I'll say. They definitely hit on their top 5 needs. We also lost out on Diggs because he did go to New Orleans. So there is that. You did lose out on Diggs. I guess that's the part to maybe be upset about. Maybe that's the complaint that we could have. But I mean, looking back, is it going to be more valuable that we have Lovett or that we drafted a linebacker slash a guy that I think is going to be more of a Sam at the next level? Like which one's more valuable? I don't know. You could argue that one. But Khalif is going to be hard to replace, and I don't even know if our guy's going to do it. So we'll see. Anyways, though, that being said, man, that's where we're at with this one. I just want to quickly hop in here and do that video. I thought this would be a good kind of wrap up to everything here. I know we went a little longer than usual, but I just felt necessary. So shout out to everyone over here on Bleacher Report, man. I appreciate y'all joining, and we'll be back Wednesday, and we'll probably start getting into UDFAs at that time. Maybe a quick little overview of all the UDFA signings. And then once we do all that, we'll start to really get into these breakdowns of each player individually this offseason, right? So stay tuned for all of that. It's going to happen. And then draft stuff. Here's my thought on, I'll leave that out there. Appreciate y'all, Bleacher Report. I'm out. I'll see y'all next on Wednesday. YouTube, yeah, draft stuff. I don't know exactly when we're going to start dropping that because obviously we want to wait for the season to start. And the plan is to follow along throughout the season with draftable players, right? Getting draft prospects, getting a sense of what they're bringing as the season goes on. The plan is to follow along through the year. But before the year starts, it's kind of difficult. The only real thing I can throw you is like, hey, early predictions based on what we know about the guys already and kind of just get a sense of like names to keep an eye on, maybe that kind of thing. We'll do like preseason names to keep an eye on. And outside of that, like there's not a lot that I really want to go too far into until the season starts. To go for over that channel is just kind of roll through once the season starts. That way we're not that far behind. But today's video was just a wrap up. That's all I wanted this to be. Just give it a wrap up, and then we'll go from there. And UDFAs are going to be next, right? That's the next thing I'm going to get into. But I assume that's going to take me more than a day to even get a background on most of these guys. Like I can tell you what school they played at, but like to legitimately grab a background, watch some film, all of them, that's probably going to take me a day. So Wednesday's probably the best time for me to expect that that's going to come out. Tesla's lottery pick. I don't think he's a lottery pick, to be honest with you. I mean, again, I'll get to the full thing here, but you could say like that with a lot of these receivers, I think, to an extent, but at the same time, dude, like Tesla separates a lot. There's not a lot of time. Like here's what I mean by that. Like Tesla's a disciplined runner, right? So my argument against that case would be, I hear what you're saying from a production versus traits thing. You feel like you're betting on traits versus production, so that's a strong statement. That makes sense. But I do feel like when you watch Tesla at the same time, some of it was they couldn't throw the ball, but it was mainly that he's a very disciplined runner. Like Tesla's not a guy that feels like he's just kind of throwing things together and he's getting open because he's bigger and faster than everybody else. I get the sense that he's a little bit more of a he's a little bit more detailed than what the expectation is going to be for his numbers. He's got some real discipline. He feels disciplined as a route runner, right? You feel some savviness there. And to me, and obviously the hands are there too. I mean, the guy literally had 0 drops last year. Like I know it was 36 targets. He didn't drop any passes. He's got good hands. He's got a weight radius, but to me, it's the discipline. The guy can actually really run routes. He can really run routes. And that's going to translate. He does. He just gets open, man. He gets open, but he's got a real feel. Like there's a, if you watch, there's a different tempo to how he runs everything. In some ways that can be predictable, but in other ways it makes it work for him. Like the way he runs slants works for the way that he's going to try to open it up. Like it sets himself up. The way that he'll run a comeback route, you can see it. He sets himself up to really snap off his routes. The way he gets over the top, there's a setup to it. The way he runs rub routes, he can really play tight to guys. So he's got a lot of that to him. There's a lot more detail than what you would expect for that production, right? For that production, there's a lot of detail to who he is as a route runner. And that's something that, like I said, you throw Savion. If you said Savion, like I would do this here. Do it just like this because I'm curious now that I'm saying it out loud. Because usually I don't look at these guys' stats, which is the problem. I don't look at stats really. I couldn't tell you stats on most of the receivers in this draft. I really have no idea. I couldn't tell you for most of these guys. But like, okay, so Savion had 611 yards last year. Savion outproduced Tesla last year statistically. The dude had 60 receptions. But how many receptions did Tesla have that were bubble screens? The games I went through, not many. It wasn't a lot of, hey, throw it quick to him, just turn and catch it. You know who had a lot of those? The Ole Miss receiver, Trey Harris. He had a lot of those. A lot of his production was like, hey, right here, right here. You didn't get it. Now you had some hitches in there, sure, like little curls from the slot, things like that. But Savion had more production than Isaac Tesla did. And Tesla, by the way, has always had that in college, even going back to Hillsdale. He was a big, low reception. He had 45 receptions at Hillsdale for about 700 yards. He's always kind of had that where it's like less receptions, more big plays. But to me, that like right there would kind of throw me back. It's like, wait a minute, that guy was more productive. Savion does not run routes like Tesla. Savion is nowhere near the route runner as Isaac Tesla, in my opinion. Like, it's not even close. And that's not that saying Isaac Tesla is an elite route runner. I don't think he's that. But it's more so looking at Savion and being like, yeah, that guy doesn't run routes that well, but he's more productive. He doesn't run routes that well, though. That's where I'm at. But again, full breakdown, that kind of thing will come at some point. Za'Darius is gonna walk. I think Za'Darius is out, man. I don't know though. Like, they said we signed his nephew. I mean, if Za'Darius Smith just wants to try to go win and he really wants to be in Detroit, and when he weighs his options, because he's going to, I think this is when the period starts of like he has real options. He can start to weigh his options and look at who's actually interested and what role he knows he's going to have here. When he goes through that process, if he feels like, okay, I'm going to get playing time with the Lions, and I'd prefer to just go there than anywhere, right? I don't need the money. I'll just go. I really do want to win. When he comes to that decision, if he makes that decision, we are an option. I don't think we're out of it. It's just, I think it's very quickly of there's this, and then there's more money, and I can get more money than what the Lions are offering me. And the Lions are probably just not going to budge. So it's just my decision, balls in my court. What do I want to do? What do I want out of this next season? He indicated there was a behind the scenes reason to why he wasn't being targeted often. Are you talking about Shedeur? You talking about Shedeur? You talking about someone else? By the way, like he had mentioned that there was like, yeah, man, what isn't going to go into detail? Like maybe they did try to go up for a certain player, like a certain edge that they ultimately didn't go. Or you might be talking about Mike Green. You might be talking about Mike Green. That's what I'm thinking. He might be talking about Mike Green. Which, yeah, there was definitely. I mean, we even as a public, we knew there was reasons to why he may drop. I mean, we don't know a whole story, but we do know there was reasons to why he was dropping. That said, you talking about Tesla indicated why he wasn't being targeted very often. Why Tesla wasn't being targeted often? Okay, yeah. I don't remember hearing that one from his street, but I must have just missed it if that was the case. So yeah, definitely. Like if you got that info, if you got the clip, man, I'd love to listen to that. Ahmed is at very least practice squad, and yeah, I mean he's a developmental piece, no doubt. But we've had a lot of those dudes become important really quickly because of our depth. But I think that Ahmed's going to have something that's going to help him, and that's the fact that he's going to be strong. And here's the thing that I know it sounds like, oh, of course he's strong. Like, yeah, what does that mean? It matters for edge. I'm telling you, it matters. Right? There's a lot of times where you'll get really good rushers that are diverse in their skill set. I'm not saying that like Ahmed over Donovan Ezaraku. Obviously, I love Donovan. I had him at number 5. But there is something to be said about guys like that come out in college that when you watch him, you're like, man, he's got such a diverse pass rush package. I was told by scouts that I used to work with, every pass rusher is raw. That's what they used to say. Every pass rusher is raw. Now, I think there's a somewhat of an exception when you get to like number 2 in the draft. But even Hudson didn't have the spin move that he uses a ton now. He said every rusher is raw when you draft them in comparison to NFL standards. Donovan having 3 moves that are really good that he gets to in college is not abnormal in the NFL. That's normal for an edge rusher. A really good rusher is going to have that. He's going to have more than that to get to. However, first step is always very valued. Ahmed's first step is not great, but it's more so power can be overwhelming for everybody. Everybody can get overwhelmed by power if you can get an edge. That's one of those things where it's like, it's not a lot of craftiness. It's just, can you create force? Guys that can create force can be problems early. There is that. Doesn't mean they're going to beat everybody up. There's a lot of guys that can handle that. But you're going to get just some wins in general because force does translate. That's just one of the things like, you got it, you got it. Now, we may need to open up how you get there, but if you can get that, if you can tap into it, that will be impactful day one. That's immediately going to be an impact as an edge rusher. So he at least has that going for him. And I do expect that his traits say he can be a real good run defender for us. The skill set is a little bit more hit and miss. but the traits say that he can be. The discipline says that he can be, and that he's going to have that early where he's not going to be making a ton of like, I'm closing my eyes and doing and making things happen. Like even Mike Green had some of that. I remember watching Mike Green, like the plays where he would attack off the edge and just hit a running back before he even got the handoff. Like, that's awesome. You get the same plays where it's like he's doing that and the quarterback keeps it and he's nowhere to be found because he's just taking off to go make a play on the ball carrier. There is a little bit of that element. Ahmed doesn't do that. Ahmed does have a awareness and a feel to that. So I think it's interesting, man. Ahmed's going to have that going for him early. I don't see him bump Patrick. No, honestly, I would be surprised if he did too. Here's the difference, though, and I was thinking about this yesterday too. Tim Patrick's not a great route runner at the top of the route. Like Tim Patrick's got a real value. Like I said, he always beats up zone, but he was not our man beater last year. And as soon as things get downfield, while he's capable and he made some great catches and all those things, he doesn't really separate that well at the top of the route. Off-man coverage gave him problems. Chicago, I showed the example a few times. He had a lot of trouble dealing with, their corners that would kind of just settle in the top of his route and they would just halt him and they would jam him there and he couldn't get off those routes. He wasn't great at that. He wasn't an elite route runner at the top when you got more vertically, right? There was a lot more of a tail. You could tell he was starting to sink. You could tell his route was going to break. Tesla, while to me, sometimes when he gets out of his cuts, he doesn't play with the most explosive pace when he really has to sink in and drop and get out. Sometimes he doesn't get flat. Either you'll lose some of the route integrity where he doesn't get out of his routes flat and he'll kind of fade a little bit, right? You'll see some of those. He could be a little bit tight to me, which is it can hurt him a little bit. I think you'll see that with Patrick too. But what Tesla does have is he can really snap his routes and he can flash the ability to get flat. His ability to snap at the top of routes does open up some of what Josh Reynolds brought. Remember Josh Reynolds, he could really snap the top of his routes off. He could really win on deep comebacks, on deep out routes. He could win there. I think Tesla has some of that. And we don't really tap into that much with Tim Patrick because that's not really his game, right? It's not really his sting. Josh had that little element to his game. I think Tesla can have enough, at least early watching, to at least be where Josh Reynolds is at in terms of how he could separate and snap off some of those deeper breaking routes, even better than what Tim Patrick does, especially if you just look at it from an upside perspective. He, to me, is clearly going to have more upside there than what Tim Patrick has. But Tim Patrick does what he does at a high level right now, and that's something that, yes, you're going to feel really comfortable with his feel, where he gets to spots, his toughness, his ability to work after the catch. He kind of does a lot of things that Tesla can do, but he does some of them at just a higher level right now than Isaac Tesla. So I don't disagree with you there at all. I think it's going to take time for sure. Getting off the line, playing out wide. That's something he doesn't really do. Like, can he do that? I don't know. Efficiency getting off the line. All that stuff is going to have to be a work in progress, but he does know how to attack leverage, and he can probably open leverage much better than what I think we've seen Tim Patrick is capable of. Tim Patrick does get cut off of routes. Like, there's a lot of times where we just don't see it because the ball's not thrown because he's not open, right? There is a lot of that. Antoine Green. I don't know, dude. Antoine Green, I thought he may have, when we drafted him, find a role in special teams as a returner. We haven't really saw that yet. So we saw him try, remember, at the beginning of the preseason. That's really not happened. So if anything, he might need to figure that out. But I would say I don't like his chances there. If anything, he does bring a vertical threat, but it's not going to be more than Antoine or Isaac Tesla. Can it be more than Dominic Lovett? Potentially, like Lovett can get open over top, but sometimes when you're talking about some of those like radius and catch radius things and catching in traffic, it's not that reliable. It feels a little bit messy when you watch Lovett. When you watch Green, can he open that more? Can he be more trustworthy downfield? Because he could always track the ball. You remember, Grant could always I'm thinking is Green. Green could always track the ball vertically at a pretty high level. He'll definitely have to show that off really quickly, I think, when you watch him, because Green didn't showcase to be a very great route runner either when we watched him, but you felt some slight improvements throughout the year. He just didn't separate that well. Can we see some improvements there? And can he be dominant over the top? Like if he can have 4 or 5 catches in training camp, I feel like, where he's like gets over top and he over the shoulder tracks the ball and makes a great catch on the sideline, that could give him a nod early, because I don't think you're going to get that consistency from Lovett and some of these other receivers. But if you can get it from him at his size, that could be the separator for him, as what he does. That's what he does. But I always thought after the catch, he could do work. I always thought he could do work after the catch. And I don't feel like we've ever really seen him tap into that. So I would love to see him tap into, get the ball in your hands and go, because that's something that I don't think Tesla is going to be amazing at. That's something that Lovett's not the most creative. It's just that Tesla's tough and Lovett is really like a one-cut runner that can go. Green, I always thought, had that ability in his game to be really impactful with the ball in his hands. That could be the thing, I think, if there's anything that maybe could separate him from the others early, maybe it's that. Because even Ronnie Bell, who has that background, he's just not dynamic with the ball in his hands. He just doesn't have much juice. So you get more with Green. I don't know. I'd like to see him tap into that. Do you think any team pick of Do you think any team pick of Jared Ivey? Did Jared Ivey get picked up by a team? Or are you saying like he hasn't got picked up by a team? Do you think any team will? I think that's what you're asking me. Um, Seahawks signing 2 undrafted. Okay, so Seattle signed Jared Ivey, right? Seattle signed Jared Ivey. If you're asking like why teams it, I didn't like him as an edge. My always issue was he had a typical frame for like a big D end. He just didn't play with any power. I think that's a recipe for disaster. And he wasn't like a great pass rusher either. I don't like guys that look like they should be something and then they're just not that. It's one thing to be like, hey, he's a big body, he's pretty agile, and you can see the force, it's just not consistently there. That's one thing. It's like, all right, he's got to look like Nick Scorton. He had a lot of agility. He was a big dude and he looked hawking. You didn't always feel that power, but you knew that, okay, he could tap into it a little bit. You could see flash where he tap into it. You want to see it more, but he could tap into it. Ivy, I never felt the power. I just felt like it was a big dude with a big frame that never showed power in his game. And it was like, that's a problem because he's not that explosive either. I was never really that high on Ivy. I was always surprised that PFF had him ranked so high. I think he came in like number 28 for me. Like he was in the great range of like a Fidel Diggs, but a Diggs I would probably not buy into because like, all right, with Diggs, I'm just gonna kind of do this with him. I'm just gonna put him more at linebacker. I'll put him on the ball, that kind of thing. With Ivy, I'm like, I don't really know what the role here is. Like I had Ivy down there with Elijah Roberts, who got drafted. Tyler Batty went undrafted. Ingram Dawkins, and Ingram Dawkins had some juice. So at least you can buy into like, okay, well, where can he fit? Ingram Dawkins has some juice. I don't think he has a great feel of the game. But like Powell, Ryland, Diggs, like those are guys at least I can point to. Like this is what they're gonna do. Him, I don't know what he's gonna do. I honestly I don't know what Jared Ivey's gonna do in the NFL. I can see more veterans placed on the practice squad, guys. Um, less likely to get poached. Absolutely. We started that trend a couple years ago, right? Getting the vets on the practice squad, guys that can help us win right away if we had to go that direction. We started doing that a few years ago. Why didn't we like Campbell? It's interesting. It's a really interesting question. I don't know. I'm surprised. I thought the Lions, now there is the injury stuff that came up, and I do think that played a factor in him falling more than what people expected. A lot of people loved Campbell. I always said I was lower on Campbell. He had the same grade to me as Tyleek. So I don't know that they didn't like him. They may have just liked Tyleek more. And he definitely fits a need much more too, if we just want to look at it from that perspective. But the Jahad Campbell was interesting because a lot of people from the outside seem to love him. From the inside, I didn't love him. I liked him. I guess from the inside, maybe the injury had more to do with it, and maybe the teams just didn't love him as much as people thought. I think the thing is with linebackers is I always felt like he was average in terms of his instincts. People loved it. I didn't think he was there, and I always think linebackers come in, and it's always a process. It's always a process with linebackers, even that you expect to play fast. Like Carson Schwessinger, to me, had the best feel of any linebacker. But even him, he's probably going to have his bumps early, especially in coverage, because sometimes feels like he's just going to spots and he's kind of just dropping to places. I didn't feel like Campbell excelled in that area. I thought he was just average. He's just played fast and he could do a lot in coverage. But a lot of people I always felt kind of had the mix of like, well, he's actually going to be really good as a rusher. And as much as I was like, all right, that's great. He was great in high school. I didn't see it that much at Bama. It's like, okay, I can see. He's like, all right, I could see some value. I could see him winning here. I could see him being a spy. I didn't watch him and felt like this guy's going to get after people. I never felt that when I watched him. I always thought his best bet was like, yo, just let him play in coverage. Let him go chase guys around. He's going to be awesome there. So maybe there was some of that too, where there was like a mix of opinion of like, well, what is he actually great at? I was pretty firm in my stance of, to me, he can be special as a coverage piece. Some people believe that his value was the versatility. I didn't think that was his value as much as it was the coverage, but maybe, I don't know. I think it could be a lot of all of those things in some way. Why is everybody writing Broderick off? I mean, it's natural because of where our depth is at, but Broderick still could have a spot somewhere. Like he could early. I mean, he could early. Like if he really did get it together from a consistency perspective, this is the best shot for him to do it is right away because Roy Lopez is going to be on the team. DJ Reader is going to be on the team, right? Certain guys are going to be here, but Aleem may very well open up not on the 53 with injury, right? Same thing with Mekhi Wingo. So there's a spot to fit in as depth if he can prove it. There's a spot to get in as depth, right? There's a spot to be like, hey, I can carve my route, my rollout early as a backup. And then if something else happens, maybe I can even get some snaps. So there's still at least a slim, but there's a path to at least early for him to prove everybody wrong and find his way on the field. I always like Broderick's flashes. I always thought he showed some really good reps, with some really horrible reps last year when he was on the field. There was some really good. There's some really like, that looks awful. It's always been a toolsy thing for him. It's always been a toolsy thing. He's always had the makeup to play and a duration of 30 snaps in a game. He's just never showed the consistency to play 30 snaps in a game. he always had the measurables. To me, he's like Joshua Farmer, super long arms, but in a massive body that could always push people back. He's kind of got a little bit of Yaya Black. If you watch Yaya Black out of Iowa, he's got a little bit of that feel to him, a little bit as well. But he's always had the tools. It's just putting it together consistently. And I think what helped him last year is, in my opinion, at least, I don't think it was just tools. I think he actually put good snaps on the field. I think he did. He just didn't put every snap. It's just that every snap combined didn't feel reliable. There were some snaps that felt that I can't rely on that guy to be where he's supposed to be. And there's others where you're like, that looks pretty good. That's the problem. So if he can get himself to a baseline of, at worst, I feel like he did okay here. If you can get to there where each snap feels at least average, he could find a spot on the team early. As the season goes on, it's going to be harder to keep that spot, and he may have to prove throughout each week of practice and in the preseason, like, I can actually play, dude. You're not cutting me. But he at least has a slimmer of hope because of where the Lions' injuries are at. So he has an opportunity. He does have an opportunity. It's just take advantage of it because it's now or never. It's definitely now or never for the guy. Do it now. Keep yourself on the roster. Get into year 4 when DJ Reader's let go, which is very possible as a free agent. Make the team. Make the team this year so that next year you can have a role. And if you can do that, you have a chance for the next 2 years to have a role. But it starts now. And to me, it's clearly this is make or break. It's make or break for him right now. So we'll see what he puts together. And I'm rooting for him a ton, obviously. I like Broderick's mentality. We just got to see it. It's just simple as that. Lions just dropped their draft recap show. Okay, is it copyright? Is it copyright? That's the question. I'd love to react to it, before we get out of here. But if it's copyright, I don't know if I want to do that. So their draft reaction show. Okay, let me see. It's probably copyright. Probably copyright. I'm definitely gonna be waiting for the Lions to drop their Inside the Den. That's gonna be fire. I know that's gonna be fire. Okay, it's live right now. Okay, here we go. Let me check it out. I'm gonna open it up. Are you surprised how Pat Bryant and Ty went in the draft? Tesla making it 102 questionable. Were you surprised at how high Pat Bryant? I'm definitely not surprised by Ty Felton. I think Ty Felton probably had a lot of love. I think he probably did. Ty Felton could run a lot. Felton could run a pretty diverse route tree. I think that brought excitement. Pat Bryant just does what he does at a pretty high level, and he's coming off a great season. So, am I surprised? Maybe I don't know if I'm surprised. It doesn't feel like a horrible range. It was just so bunched together. Like he had a really good season, right? I mean, so that's he had a really good season, right? Like that he put a really good year together. He won. The way that he won was consistent. He had a lot of consistency in the way that he won. Ty Felton has a pretty diverse, I think, makeup of how he can win. I think Ty Felton has a lot to tap into as a route runner. And if you find the right, like, okay, level 2, level 3, maybe we could just work him there consistently. You might have something. I don't know what his ceiling really is in those categories, but he can at least tap into, I think, a lot as a route runner. So I'm checking this thing out. So they're like kind of interviewing and stuff. Do we want to watch this? Do we want to watch this? It feels like it's copyright with their beats, but I don't know. Like I saw the title. There it is. All right. Yeah, I didn't know Aleem reacted like this when he got drafted. Say Aleem McNeil is built different. This was Aleem when he got drafted. This was his reaction when he got drafted.
When Aleem McNeil got rewarded his contract, hey, congratulations! Thanks for believing in me.
This dude, hey, you should have knew this guy was going to be a problem. What the heck? Is that how Tyleik was?
And I was able to talk to Tyleik, and he probably had a little bit more energy, but I think it's one of the cool things about him is that he's just kind of a very even.
Oh my goodness, Tyleik was the same. He was real chill too. That's crazy. That's crazy. See, that's the little things. I didn't even know about none of that. I didn't even know Aleem's reaction was that. That dude's got a back scratcher in his hand, bro. He don't care, dog. Man, it's just another day at the office, man. We got Shador jumping into the pool. Lee McNeil, he wasn't even watching the draft. The dude was watching some YouTube videos and stuff. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like I can't show this though. Like I would love to react to this. I don't think I can show this on YouTube. I think they're gonna get me quick with some NFL IDs. So I don't think I can show this. I would like to. I just don't think I can. So I'm gonna stay away from this. I'm definitely gonna check this out. Maybe we can talk about it later, but I'm not gonna show this on YouTube. I think they're gonna hit me quick. I'm pretty sure they put a lot of work into that. They usually don't use beats. They've told me that are copyright. That's what the guys behind it have told me. Some of the producers that I've talked to, but I'm just not gonna do it because I know they put a lot of time into that. I'm sure that there's things in there that will be claimed. I don't want to mess with that. I'll let them have their moment there with that video. I don't want to mess with that. Why does the Giants have Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, and Thibodeau? Why not? I guess. I mean, just why not, right? I mean, shoot. I mean, at that spot though, is like, what else are you gonna do? To be in fairness to them, I don't know what else. I mean, they could have went tackle, maybe surprise some people. They could have used some O-line help, but shoot, at that point, like, dog, it's just he's a great player. Abdul's a problem. Abdul's a problem. So I'm not mad at it. Always reader needs to take a hike. You're good. Oh wait, hold up. Okay. I don't know what that's a response. I think that's a response to him. I'd keep Watson, Flacco, and Sanders if I were the Browns. Watson, Flacco, and Sanders. They got to get out of Watson as soon as they can, but I don't think they can. I just don't think they can. They're just giving themselves like two cracks at it. All right, one of these guys might do something. All right. One of these guys, I don't know. They only send PC principal. If that's the case, I will watch it. If that was the case, I'd watch it, but I don't mess with those guys. You know what I mean? I'll mess with those dudes. How much drop off do Lions fans expect with lost both coordinators? Certainly hurt. Yeah, hopefully it's not that bad. I think I trust Dan a little bit more than I trust Nick Sirianni, in honesty, in terms of like knowing what he's doing there. Defensively, I don't think it's going to be much of a drop off. I mean, I could be completely wrong. I love Darren Glenn, what he did. He grew, but I just get the sense that Calvin Shepard was in that dude's hip the entire time, and he's just learned. And I don't think there's gonna be much of a drop off. He may help us get better. I don't think there's gonna be much change. Maybe some stylistic differences, but we changed our scheme up all the time. Offensively is the question because Ben was fantastic. And while I like John Morton and I know he's going to have a new flavor, I think it's going to look different. I think it's definitely going to look different with John Morton. I think some things are going to look much different. I just want Goff to be comfy. As long as Goff is comfy with it and he has control over it and it's not a, okay, well, wait, can I do this? Like, as long as it's in his hands, I'm comfortable because from a run game's perspective, now having Hank Fraley really take that over, I'm pretty confident the run game is going to be tough. It's going to be really tough still. It's just as long as Goff is comfy with what they're doing, we're good, right? You may lack some of that creativity. We try to hire some guys that have had a lot of creativity as well as assistants. Maybe they can tap into that because remember, Ben even credited it like, yeah, it was the assistants that brought that out of us. And we hired some guys like the guy that played at Toledo, the quarterback, that have done a lot of those trickeration things and they've gotten into their bags with some creativity. And this will be their opportunity to kind of just dive into that. So we may have some, but I think it will look different. Offense is going to look different. Defense, I think, will look very similar. But I definitely wouldn't be surprised if they could step back because, I mean, it should, right? I mean, the offense was so good last year. You know, the Lions, I read this yesterday, were the only team in the NFL, and it's like one of like only 7 or 8 teams to finish top 5 in like DVOA of offense, defense, and special teams during a season. That's how good the Lions were last year, which makes sense. They won 15 games. It makes a lot of sense. But I read that yesterday. It's crazy. Crazy. Heard anything about Jackson Meeks? Yeah, we'll get to those. Well, I mean, Wednesday's the plan. Wednesday's the plan for all that stuff. Just a quick overview on Wednesday, and then we'll start getting into them individually. But I don't know much about them right now. I like Ben Johnson, but we have the same personnel. It's going to be less trick plays. That's just okay. It may be. But I don't want to, overlook some of these new assistants that we brought in because some of these assistants, man, could be tough. But Ben Johnson was amazing. Like, Ben Johnson's ability to just seem to be a step ahead of everybody all the time was ridiculous. It wasn't even just the trick plays. The guy was always a step ahead of the other team. It's like, we expect this to happen on this play, so we'll get to this. It's not saying it was 100%, but man, it felt like it was 98%. Like, you could point to the examples of like, okay, they thought they were going to get something, they didn't get it. But my goodness, the amount of times where it was like they had a play that was perfect for the coverage is crazy. I don't even know how they pull that off. Like, I get it from a tendency perspective. You can expect certain things, but their ability to like, okay, we got this play. Let's do it. It's like, that's insane. I don't understand how you're supposed to defend that. It's like they're calling the play perfect for what you're doing defensively. Good luck with that. I don't know what the response is there. It's crazy. Personnel help definitely helps, but Ben and everybody on the offense was ridiculous. They were outstanding. And I do have some belief that Dan's going to help us as well there, because even that first season, you know, you go to like the Baltimore game when Swift took over, we had a really good feel for like, okay, let's lean on this guy. Let's find this guy. That's our matchup this week. I think we'll still have a good sense of matchups and how to get to those. It's just the consistency of like understanding tendencies was crazy. Um, and that's why we always did so many of those offensive breakdowns, because I just love watching it. So fun to watch. He threw a 20-yard pass on third down. He threw a 20-yard pass. He threw the pick. He shouldn't have threw the ball. But I will not let that interception that Jamo shouldn't have thrown. Yeah, he shouldn't put his hands, that whole thing. I'm not even going to get into that whole thing. That was still an amazing game plan against Washington. I still thought his offense game plan was outstanding against Washington. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater came in and we scored a touchdown on a trick play. It's like, what like right there, immediately, you're like, oh, things could get bad, guys. Teddy Bridgewater's in here, and they scored a touchdown anyway. So yeah, this guy, these guys are pretty crazy. These guys are pretty good at what they do. So yeah, I full love. Nothing has changed for me. And by the way, the JMO pass was on first down. If you're speaking to that one, that was the interception was on first down that he threw. But the point is, yeah, got a lot of love for Ben. That dude's amazing. He is smart as heck, and I just can't help. I don't think my mindset will ever change. I hope he's trash with the Bears. I respect it though. I think it's gonna add a lot of fun. But I think he is ridiculous at what he did. No, you're good. You're good. But I think it's important because I do think that, and it would be easy for me to like, he wasn't that good. And I love to think that, but I think he was the best at what he did. I think he was the best. And obviously I didn't watch everybody else, but I just have never seen something like that. And again, in fairness, some of that could have been just understanding what I'm seeing better, right? Getting more into the football world and understanding like what does what. And I'm not even close to near where those guys are, but just something like that, just getting a better sense of what you're actually seeing, and you see kind of tendencies. And when every week you do it and you chart every single play, you start to get, in your head, like, okay, this is what they do. This is how they do it. And then when you start to watch the other teams, and you watch 4 or 5 games of their full games to get a sense of what the other team does. And then you come into the game and you see how they're attacking. You're like, what the heck? Like, okay, I get how you got to that, but then the way that you actually went about doing it, like, I understand that you expected this coverage in that spot, right? You expected them to do this in that spot. But then tell me how you came up with the idea to attack them with this, with that. Like, it's ridiculous. Though that kind of thing was crazy. So, not saying John Moran can't do it. I think Moran's really good at what he does. He's really good at what he does. And he's got his own little unique flavor. I don't think he's going to be Ben. I think he's going to have his own little unique flavor on all of this. And I think his pass game is going to look a little bit different. And I think the way that he sets up route combos is special. I think he's fantastic at doing that. We actually did a video of that a while ago if you haven't checked it out. But Ben was great. Ben was great. And I think that's great. It's going to add, I'm fired up for what it's going to look like in division next year. I think it doesn't seem possible, but we're going to have 4 amazing teams in the division, because at this point, I'm not counting out Kevin O'Connell with whoever the heck's playing quarterback. And I like JJ, and the Packers are just good all the time. Right. And then the Packers, I think Packers about to be the worst team. But the point is, this division is going to be insane next year. We might set we were setting records last year. We're probably going to continue that going forward, setting records at how good this division is. That'd be my guess. I know the injuries stink. The injuries do stink, but I think they did a good job. They addressed it. They did address it, I think, this offseason, right? I think they did a lot to try to at least not only prepare for the future, but I think a lot of what they did is going to be huge. That's why I said, like, I think Tyreek, we're going to look back and be like, thank goodness for drafting Tyreek, but we're probably going to honestly overlook some of how important he is, because he's going to have bumps as a rookie. Unfortunately, he's going to be put into a big role because he's a rookie, a big role because we need him, and he's going to have plenty of hiccups early, and I think he's going to be knocked a lot early is my early guess. He's going to have good in there, but he's going to get a lot of criticism early. He just is. And people are like, oh, look, he took him too early. He's going to get a lot of criticism early because he's going to be on the field a lot. We're going to need him a lot. He's going to play a little bit slow when he's at nose tackle. That's what I had picked up early on him. We'll see. I'll do my full breakdown soon. 3, I didn't think he was a dominant pass rusher. He could get after, but I didn't think he was a dominant pass rusher. I think you're going to see plenty of hiccups from Tyreek early, but you're going to need him so much that he's going to get way more criticism than he should. However, we're going to look back and be like, dude, thank goodness we took him, because he was like a glue guy for what this team needed, not only for now, but also for the future. He's going to help us set up really well, I think, going forward. The foundation stays intact. This year, in a lot of ways, kind of felt like the first year. It was like, hey, let's get back to what made this team really good. And it was the foundation the Lions built year 1 with Levi and Penei and Aleem. And then you come back now this year and you go Tyreek and Ratledge. And then you had your St. Brown, which is your Tesla. And then you went Miles Frazier, and Ahmed, you're just taking, you're getting this, you're swinging on the big guys. You're swinging on the big guys, man. It's kind of what it felt like, getting back to who we are, and I'm excited about it. I think we're gonna be better team this year with a worse record. That makes a ton of sense. It makes a ton of sense. And I think you probably are right. Like the idea, winning 15 games again would be crazy. Like there's not, you really can't go up from what we did last year in a regular season. It's hard to lose less than 2 games. It's hard. I hope we do, but it's hard to pull that off. I'm kind of disappointed we didn't leave a draft with the Sam Backer. I get that. I think Grant Stewart's going to get some looks there. I think he's going to get some opportunity. I do like what Trevor did. Trevor got a lot better last year. Trevor got better as a rusher. Trevor was really fast as an improver. So I am excited that Trevor is back on this team. For a while, I was like, shoot, did we not bring him back? What are we doing? I thought he'd be a no-brainer. They did bring him back. I think Trevor was such a fast riser last year that I feel comfortable with him as a backup. Obviously, just getting Barnes healthy. Hopefully, he's coming in healthy this year. We'll be okay there. Malcolm getting back because he could play Sam. When Malcolm played Sam, he held it down pretty well. It was just we had to go to everybody else outside of that. But I'm optimistic. Like Trevor got better during a year, and I don't think a lot of times you get that where guys, you feel that they're getting better. They're getting more rush and they're making more impact plays against the run throughout the year. You're still getting your downs, your ups and downs with him because he's young and he's new to it. But you felt it, and I'm really curious that after a full offseason where he gets to, he could take a big jump. He could be one of those under the radar guys that takes a really big jump next year. And when we have to call upon him, he could be really sound and potentially earn a deal elsewhere after this year. He could be like Jalen Reeves-Maybin this year. I could see him, if he gets enough playing time, if he took the jump he did last year through the year, he ends up getting a deal with somebody else and gets a 2-year, some kind of deal where it's like, hey, you're a full-time starter. We want to see what that looks like. And then, we'll see if it works out for him. But I think that he's in line to potentially get that kind of deal. I think Trevor Nowatzki, because he's already an athletic enough, he's got the body type teams like, he's got a chance, I think, to be kind of next in line to being that player that gets that deal. Maybe earns us like a 7th round comp pick doing that too. That'd be my early thoughts on him. Williams will be better when Nick Neal is back, 100%, and he'll be able to rotate. It'll take pressure off him, 100%. And and hopefully, if the faster Ahmed can hit, the faster, it'll help as well for Tyleik because Levi can help take pressure off him because Aleem was really good last year. Like you don't realize how good he was until you don't look for him and he's popping. And that's what I noticed when putting that video that I put out today when I watched it back was like, yo, Levi was really good last year. He was good everywhere. That was like one of our best playmakers on the D line, especially against the run. He made a lot of plays. He made a lot of stops. When they had him on the edge, he had about 7 stops in those games. And he was playing majority over a tackle or outside of a tackle. The games that he played a majority there, he had a couple of stops a game, maybe 1 or 2, and he was good against the run, kind of collapsed things. When he was on the inside, he had about 5 stops a game. Like this dude was making a lot of plays against the run. Levi is going to be very helpful. And the other guys on the edge can help, pick him up early. And specifically if Davenport's healthy, the longer Davenport's healthy, the more flexibility you'll get for Levi, and he'll help us a ton. So hopefully just anybody on the edge can kind of solidify that early, and it'll help Tyleik as well, because I think Levi will help us a lot everywhere. Anywhere we put him, I'm going to feel comfortable with him after what he did last year when he was on the field. I believe if Houston doesn't get injured in his second season, he's a good piece for this team. His speed disappeared. Yeah, and so does Ben too, man. He just looked like he just wasn't him. He just didn't look right. So I'm definitely rooting for him to get back and get right with Cleveland. Hopefully he can, because that dude was, even last year, he was still crucial for us. He wasn't great, but the games that we did have to call upon him, he made some big time plays. He wasn't consistent, but he made some big moment plays for us. And I'm grateful for that we had him even when we did last year, and he just did enough to help us at times, to make it just do enough. So hopefully he gets to that with Cleveland. He can kind of bounce back because he's going to have a real opportunity with Cleveland. They don't have that many guys. They don't have a lot of core pieces. They're trying to find them. I know, dude. Hey, dude, I'm telling you, Davenport's a heck of a player. He just needs to be on the field. There's no in between for me. It's not like, well, is he going to play well? The dude's a good player. And we remember his presser. He was like, yo, I'm going to be on the field, that kind of thing. Like he was full set on, I want to be back and I want to get on the field and play for these team. Well, shoot, man, if you can do that, we're going to be sitting real pretty on this D line. If he can play a good amount of games, we'll be sitting real pretty because that dude is a good player. He's a good player. He just needs to be out there. Can we expect some interior D line beside Levi to get snaps? Some of our interior defense line to get snaps? Yeah, I mean, like Levi, Tyleik, we know Reader will hold it down early. Wingo could, because they did it with him last year, but he has to get healthy too. Pat O'Connor, I think, is always kind of the little like card they can go to if they need it. But I would say a guy like Chris Smith. Like Chris Smith showed last year, he was reliable, wasn't much of a game changer, but he was at least reliable as a run defender. They could always give him some snaps and kind of just see what it looks like. But then obviously you have Roy Lopez, and he's the guy that is really the difference maker, right? You tie him with Tyleik. I break it down in the last video. Roy Lopez can stop the run and rush the passer. That is going to be the difference maker on the interior. Roy Lopez opens up a lot of flexibility for us, someone that we just needed because Roy Lopez is to me, I always look at it like this. Ever since we signed him, I always looked at it like this. Chris Smith was like he had a baseline. He'd stop the run at an okay level. He'd do his job. He wasn't going to go above and beyond, but he'd do his job, and he might give you an effort sack. That was Chris. Roy Lopez is the Lions' attempt to just take that next step. It is the same role with the attempt to take the next step forward. Like this is an upgrade over Chris Smith. Similar idea, going to do his job, but can go a little bit above and beyond as a run stopper, and he can really affect the passer in a limited sample size. He is the Lions' attempt to say, we're going to take Chris and we're going to bump him to the next level, and they're hoping that's Roy Lopez. What's the ETA for Rodrigo? I honestly have no idea. I have no idea. Do we have anything recently that's coming on that? Let's check it out. So Rodriguez, let me see. Oh, why did I look up that? Sorry, I looked up a soccer player. My bad. Wrong thing there. I didn't know there was a guy with the name of Rodrigo, but here we are. Okay. So he tore his ACL on November 28th. Assuming that it was his recovery time is estimated 9 to 12 months. Yeah. So assuming that it was clean and they didn't have to kind of clean up his meniscus, assuming that it was, a clean recovery, assuming that he did an ACL tear that was himself and not from someone else that could take longer and it could set back more likely, assuming that it's all those things, you're saying basically in beginning of December, so December, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August. So by August, he did that 9-month. August, September, October. I would say maybe a couple months into the season, I could see him legitimately playing. Like I think it's different for everybody. Like I said, I have an ACL tear. I'm recovering from right now. I'm about 7-8 months in, and right now with my brace, I can light jog, and I could probably push it harder. I'm just not in any rush. I'm not an NFL player. They're also doing much more specific rehab. I would assume that's like nonstop, and they're doing a lot more exercising, and they're doing it better than I am. They're probably much more efficient with their work, but they also have a tougher workload when they do come back. If they do it correctly, it should be stronger than his other leg. His ACL should be incredibly strong once it comes back, if they do it correctly and he doesn't rush it back. So I think based on that, he should be able to, I would think, on most schedules by September, October. At worst, he should be moving around. You should be kind of running around at that point, getting back to running. He'll have a brace when he comes back, but he should be running around. Full contact, probably pushing a little bit further, right? End of October, November, before he's actually hitting guys. That'd be my safe guess, but that's safe guessing. I have no idea. I would think pros should get back sooner, right? But at the same time, they're also hitting people. I'm not hitting guys every day, so I don't know. Like it's probably somewhere in that ballpark. About to get his 4.2 speed. Of course. No, actually, the crazy thing is I used to run a 4.0 flat. I was like one of those superhumans that they like people make movies about like superheroes, but actually that's inspiration of me. Like one day, like some like those Marvel movies, I actually used to have like people that would follow me around and like, yo, can we like just see it in action? And I just run around and stuff. And they'd be like, that's a great idea for a movie. So it's just one of those things, man. It's one of those things where it's like, hey, you know what I mean? Maybe I am a superhuman. So what? You know what I mean? Like I'm just a normal guy at heart. You know what I'm saying? So that's just that's one of those things, man. It's just a small setback for an amazing recovery. That's how I look at it. You know what I mean? So you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I need my boy Ennis to pop off this season, man. He's gonna pop. He's gonna pop. You know what I mean? He's gonna pop. He's that good. And this is really good. This is what we need to do. This is what we need to do as fans. And I need to do it. I'm reminding myself, really. Let's not forget the guys we drafted. I feel like this year there was like, and I've never had an issue with drafting running backs, but it was like people were forgetting Vaki. Vaki's good. He's going to be good. Rakestraw's really good. That guy's going to be really good. He was awesome in training camp. That's not even just based on Missouri. He was awesome in training camp. That dude was taking the ball away left and right. He's going to be really good. He's going to be good. Even the receptions he gave up, he was in those dudes' hips. They were great throws. He's going to be really good. Be really good. Why are y'all laughing? That's crazy. That's cap emoji. That's crazy. I'm just telling y'all experience. Y'all don't want to hear real life experience. You don't have to. I mean, I'm just trying to keep everybody informed with reality, but that's fine, man. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It just is what it is. Just is what it is. Deion Bull. I mean, like you said it, not me. You know what I'm saying? That's just one of those. You said it, not me, dog. Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, look, man, I think uh okay, yeah. I think we're good here. I think we're good here, man. This recap was good. UDFA is probably Wednesday at the latest, but probably Wednesday. We'll do our first little overview on Wednesday. And then we'll start getting into these guys individually. We'll keep up with any news that pops off. I said to buy Harford I went crazy. I went a little crazy. Maybe I did too much. There's an argument to be made I did too much. Okay. But let's just fall back a little bit. Still gonna be a good player. I probably did too much, but you know, we'll see. It's not impossible yet. CMC had injuries too. That's all I'm going to say. He's got injuries too. Okay, you know what I mean? Or I guess it's not even injuries, but he didn't always be on the field too. I don't know what I'm trying to go for here. I don't know. All right, I don't know what I'm going for here. I set the bar too high, probably. He's going to be good though. He's going to be good. We do have some potential exciting announcements. I will leave y'all with in terms of content coming up. I don't want to say soon, but like relatively soon. In terms of getting a group together of Lions creators that are fantastic. Some of them, which you may have seen on this channel many times before, that hasn't been on the channel in a long time. I won't say who that is, but if you know, you know. That's in the works right now. We got some big things coming starting this offseason that behind the scenes I've been trying to kind of help put together and guide together in collaboration with Roundtable Sports after having gone to the draft. Inspiration has been flying, and I think we got some big things coming, man. I think y'all are going to love it because this group is going to be really good. I just don't want to throw names out there in case things pop up and things happen, but it's going to be a group that it's pretty fire. It's pretty fire. And once it gets started, I mean, the sky's the limit with these dudes, man. This is going to be a great group, but that's in the works. I don't know exactly how fast it's going to start because there's a lot of like business things behind the scenes that have to line up to get the thing started, to get it off the ground, but it will start at some point and it's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, man. Yeah, it's not the Patricia era. I appreciate y'all joining. I will see you guys soon. It's not Pat McAfee. It's not Pat McAfee. I can tell you that. So if you were hoping, I apologize. It's not. You'll have Ansa. Is it Ansa or is it Ansa? Tell me that. Tell me how to pronounce that name. All right, because we got to start there first. That hat ain't coming off. No, that's facts now. That's facts. I wore this. I wore this to the high school today. I was like, I'm wearing this thing. I'm wearing this thing. All right. I'm not taking this. You right about that. This thing is fire, dude. This is one of my favorite hats. I have had a lot of hats that I've really liked over the years. Like obviously the one that I got from the Lions was my favorite. But this one is tough, dude. This one is it just looks outstanding. But yeah, I'll leave it there. First way, Ansa. Okay, Ansa. Okay, that makes sense. I was like, Ansa doesn't seem right. Ansa. Gotcha. Or was it Ansa? Hold up. Ansa or is it Ansa? I don't remember what I said first. I'm gonna be honest with you. Don't remember what I said. Don't remember what I said first. One of those two, though. Look, we're close, man. We've nailed it down to 50. It's a 50-50 shot. I'm gonna get it right. That's what we can bet on going forward. There's a 50-50 shot. I'm gonna say your name correctly. So that's a good start. Ansa. Ansa. I think that's Ansa. That's Ansa. There's two N's there, so it's got to be An. Ansa. Now there's like a 90% shot I'm going to get it right. So probably still going to get it wrong next time, but we're in the ballpark. I appreciate y'all joining, man. Have a great night. Enjoy some basketball. The Pistons will be back. Pistons will be back. Don't worry. They'll start winning. Okay. They're going to beat the Knicks next game, and I'll see y'all soon. We out. And if you haven't checked out the last video, definitely check it out. I've just definitely check it out. You're going to enjoy it. It's like 27 minutes, but it's really good. It's really good. I'm out.